Hey everybody, today we're looking at Madonna 7-inch singles, all of her official 7-inch singles that have really cool picture sleeves or are more collectible or rarer than the standard affair. So let's get started. Let's begin with her first UK single, which happens to be Everybody. So that was released in the UK in 1982. Came in a plain die-cut picture sleeve, and it featured the edit version of Everybody. It was a different version to the American production that was produced by Mark Hammonds. This actually features Rusty Egan's remixed versions of the track. So there's a dub version on the back, on the flip side, and on the A side it has an edited version, which is basically different to any other version you'll hear around the world. So they're quite rare, very collectible. It didn't sell too well, so there aren't that many around. Then we move on to Everybody, released in Europe. So this one was released in Belgium. So it's a Belgian pressing of Everybody. This is actually the American production, produced by Mark Hammonds, but it has an edit version of the track. You can see the flip side has the same design as the front cover. Then we move on to the French edition. So the front cover, once again, looks like every other version, and the back has this really cool black bordered design with the instrumental version featuring on the back, same as the Belgian pressing. This is once again same as the American pressing, just the edit version. You can see there the SIA logo and the French copyright writing. This one is the Spanish edition, so the cover looks the same, but the back cover is very different to anywhere else in the world. It features an image of Madonna. It's the first time people got to actually see Madonna's face in Europe. Has a couple of versions of Everybody in the B-side. That actually features the same UK remix as the UK version, so they're different to anywhere else. Then we move on to Burning Up. So Burning Up was released also in Europe with this great picture sleeve. You can see there's a little SIA logo in the corner there on this one. This one is quite different. It was released in Holland and it's got a great flip side cover art. So here it mentions Lucky Star as the upcoming album. It's got a great image of Madonna, a very rare image that you don't see very often. It's quite collectible. Those ones go for quite a bit because they're a bit more expensive and harder to find. This is the French edition, so it's the edit version of Burning Up that was released everywhere else in the world, which is a Reggie Lucas production of the song. You can see the flip side has the same cover as the front cover. Then we move on to the Spanish edition, which has been retitled to Ardiendo. So Burning Up was released in Spain with this great picture sleeve. Once again, nice rare image of Madonna, very early in her career. There it has the edit versions Burning Up and Physical Attraction. They are the American productions of the song too, the Reggie Lucas productions. Then we go to Brazil. Now, Brazil released Burning Up, but it was actually on the flip side. So on the A side was Physical Attraction, which was the flip side everywhere else in the world. So it's a bit strange there why they did that. Perhaps Burning Up was not as popular and they found that Physical Attraction was a better track. In America, that was actually, Physical Attraction was releasing a lot of radio airplay, hence possibly why it was so popular in Latino countries. But in any case, it's a great little edition. It's Madonna's second single in Brazil, I believe. Then we move on to the US pressing of Physical Attraction. There's an edit version there. You can see there that it talks about the track being taken from the 12-inch maxi single, which was the Burning Up 12-inch maxi single, which had Physical Attraction on the B-side. This is a great little collectible. Don't see many of these around, and it looks like Physical Attraction was sent to radio stations for airplay. Next up is Holiday. This is the Spanish edition. You can see the words Holiday written up the top, so it looks very similar to the first album. Has a track I Know It on the B-side, and it was a unique sleeve for Spain that featured that artwork. This is the UK pressing of Holiday. Supposedly the first pressing of Holiday in the UK came in this chain sleeve, so there are only a few of these around. The German pressings look very similar, but it's not the same thing. The reissue was released in this great train sleeve, or referred to as a train sleeve, as Think of Me on the B-side. But when it was reissued in '85, that's how they looked. This is the Italian edition, the Italian reissue edition. There was an original version which has a different cover, but this one was great. It's a replica, basically, of the first album, picture sleeve, and it coincided with the release of that album. In 1985, they reissued Holiday in Italy, and that's the great cover that they had. This is the German pressing or the French pressing of Holiday. Like I mentioned earlier, they look very similar to the US pressings, but it has different part numbers and different logos. They're more common. Now this is the original pressing of Holiday, released in Italy. So this is the cover that it has. It's a great picture sleeve. And it actually featured everybody on the B-side. So it was a little different to everywhere else in the world that featured either the track Think of Me or I Know It. So it's a great little sleeve. Not as easy to track down nowadays. Another rare single is the Brazilian pressing of Holiday. So the cover looks similar to the Spanish edition, but it does have a red border. These you don't come across these very easy, as I Know It on the B-side there. They are getting harder to find as time goes on. This next single is probably the most rarest in her collection. That's Lucky Star, the edit version. You can see that great picture sleeve there, referred to as the sunglasses sleeve. So this is Madonna's second single released in the UK before she was really famous or well known, and got a great image there. You can see it's an incredible picture sleeve, but very rare. Very few of them around because they weren't that popular, so they made very few of them, and now they're hideously expensive. They sell for incredible prices. If you're lucky enough to track one down and it's in great condition, you'll have to pay a premium price. But that's probably one of her most collectible singles in her entire collection. Then we move on to the Brazilian pressing of Lucky Star. Yeah, it's got a great picture sleeve, similar design to Borderline, but it has Lucky Star written down the bottom. Features I Know It on the B-side. England then reissued Lucky Star about a year later, and this is the great picture sleeve that came in. So you can see there that it has a different design to the original issue. This is when she was quite popular, so this sold quite well, so you can actually find this quite easily. Great picture sleeve. Then we move on to the next single released, which was Borderline. So this is the European pressing of Borderline. It was released in England this way. This is a 7-inch single. Features an edit version of Borderline with the track Physical Attraction on the B-side. This is the Brazilian edition of Borderline. Great picture sleeve. You can see the words Borderline down there. This is probably one of my favourite versions of Borderline, purely because the design is so cool. Then we have the US poster edition of Borderline. So the first few copies of Borderline came out in the US as a 7-inch single in a poster bag. So the sleeve itself is a fold-out poster. It's got some of the credits there. It's a great design. Once you fold it out, you'll see that it's got a big image of her and some graphics on the side, so it's pretty cool. Not too easy to track down nowadays. You'll have to pay a little bit for them. Here's the reissue of Borderline, released in the UK. Pretty much identical to the original issue. Now this pressing of Like a Virgin is the US pressing. This is the single as it was released in the US. This is the Canadian edition of Like a Virgin. It was released as a promo on 7-inch single in Canada. That's the disc. This is the picture sleeve. You can see there. It's in pretty good condition. They're usually in pretty bad shape. You don't find them this clean. So that's one you'd want to have in the collection if you're a serious collector. This one is the UK edition of the single. You can tell by looking at the front cover, it's got Stay written on the bottom right hand corner there. So these sleeves were exclusive to the UK with that on the cover. Then we move on to the Material Girl. This pressing is the Portuguese pressing, which is very similar to the US edition. It's a great picture sleeve. Released in Portugal with that sleeve. This is a Spanish edition, Spanish promo edition. So you can see a border there, and it's got like a sepia wash all the way through, so it's a little different. That's the promo 7-inch. And then we have the US edition of the single. I think this came with the US promo 7-inch as well. The European pressing of Material Girl's got a great image, so only a few European countries have this sleeve, including England, France and Italy. Then we move on to Crazy For You. It was a great ballad for Madonna. It was a huge hit around the world. There, down the bottom there, you can see that they're promoting the movie it came from, Vision Quest. I think that was Australian edition. This is the US single. Then we move on to the Spanish edition, which has a slightly different back cover design. So the disc itself only plays on one side because this is the actual Spanish promo. This is the front cover. The back cover has this on the flip side. So you can see there that it's promoting the album, talking about some of the tracks off the soundtrack. So it's a pretty cool sleeve. And the disc itself, being an actual promo disc, is really cool as well. You want to try and track that down, something different. Then we move on to the Brazilian edition of Crazy For You. So this one has a different flip side design as well. So it's got the lyrics to Crazy For You on here. It's translated, I think. No, it's in English. But one thing that's really strange is there is an extra verse in here, which does not actually appear in the actual song. So originally Crazy For You had an extra verse, but they must have edited it before they released it. But that's pretty cool. It's a little different to anywhere else, and it has the B-side, Only the Young. You can see the translation there in Portuguese. So different B-side track, different flip design, so it's pretty cool. Then we move on to, I think that's just the German pressing, or Australian pressing actually, that has mentions Crazy For You there down the bottom rather than Vision Quest. This is Angel. This is the UK pressing of Angel. Features the track Burning Up, but it has the alternate version of Burning Up on the B-side there, and an edit version of Angel. Then we have the American version of Angel. This has a different design on the flip side, you can see there, and it actually also has a different B-side track. So it actually has a remix edited version of the A-side. So the LP version or the edit version on the A-side, and then on the B-side a remixed version of the track. Here's Into the Groove, incredible Brazilian picture sleeve. Now these are really nice, pretty hard to track down nowadays, and a little expensive, but it has a really cool design. It's one of my favourite designs actually. This is how Into the Groove looked in France, and you can see that little red caption there. It's a translated caption. It has the same track listing as the UK, and this is the UK edition. You can see that the titling is a little different, the arrangement of the layout's different, but these are how they appeared in most European countries. Next up is Gambler, the second single released off the Vision Quest album. This is a cool picture sleeve. This is a standard edition of the single. Then we have the limited edition fold out poster bag. So in the UK they had a few copies released in this special fold out picture sleeve, and they're pretty cool, getting a little harder to find nowadays. One of the most interesting editions of Gambler would have to be the Spanish edition, purely because the flip side has different artwork on there. So it has it advertises the 12-inch maxi single of Gambler, and the Vision Quest album also has the lyrics there. So this is pretty cool. It's a little different to anywhere else in the world. It's just nice to have in the collection. It's different. This is Dress You Up, released in the UK as I Know It on the B-side. It's got a really cool picture sleeve there. They use the same sleeve for the maxi single. Here's a pretty cool edition released in Spain. I think Spain and Portugal have had Dress You Up in this really cool cover. So this picture sleeve differs to the other 7-inch singles in Europe, as it features the same design that was used in the American maxi single. Here's a really cool alternate French sleeve design. You can see the titling there is a little different to the regular edition. These were limited or released in limited quantities. And here's a US edition. For some reason this is really difficult to track down. Her American record company decided to release very few of the singles in this sleeve. Not sure, some people say it was withdrawn or she wasn't happy with the design. For whatever reason, the picture sleeves are really difficult to find because they usually come in just a plain white die-cut sleeve. And here's the Italian edition of Dress You Up. I wasn't sure if it was actually released as a single in Italy, but it does. Here's evidence that it exists as an Italian single. I just don't think they had it as a maxi single. But another single released in Italy, which is perhaps the rarest and most sought after, besides Lucky Star 7-inch, is Over and Over. Released only in Italy and one other country. This is the beautiful Italian edition and a great unique picture sleeve. It features borderline on the B-side. These are really collectible and are quite expensive. You'll be paying a bit of money to try and find one in great condition, and they are getting harder to find, especially in good condition. Now, Over and Over was also released in the Philippines, believe it or not. It didn't come with a picture sleeve, but it did get released and played on radio, and I believe also charted. So They're probably the only 2 countries in the world to have that as a single. You can see there the flip side has the same track as the A side. So there you go, that's a nice little rarity to have in the collection. So that's part 1 of Madonna's 7-inch singles. Stay tuned for part 2, and if you like my videos, please subscribe and like them, and yeah, I'll be back with more, so stay tuned.